sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, let's get ready for a deep dive into the College Football Playoff National Championship. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. And I know you're as excited about this matchup as I am.
Yeah.
And, I always appreciate you sending over some great articles to help guide our conversation. So let's jump right into it and figure out what makes this game so interesting, shall we?
Well, right away, it's a classic clash of styles. Ohio State with their incredible offense and just loaded with NFL talent all over the field. And then Notre Dame with that tough and super disciplined defense. Talk about strength versus strength, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's dig into those quarterbacks first. Both Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, and Will Howard, Ohio State, are Senior Bowl bound. So essentially, NFL draft experts are really high on both these guys, which has got to add another layer of pressure to this game, you would think.
Oh, for sure. It's like every throw, every decision they make, scouts are just glued to their every move. This is their chance to really prove themselves on a huge stage, and it could absolutely have a big impact on how they're viewed come draft day. But even beyond just, their pro futures, the thing that makes this matchup so exciting is their styles. I mean, they're completely different.
Right. Veneral Leonard is more that, dual threat quarterback. Can make plays with his legs, but I noticed the article mentioned he can be a little inconsistent as a passer, especially under pressure. So I'm wondering, do you think Ohio State's defense might try to exploit that?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. And, Ohio State has a really fierce defense. They could definitely try to rattle him early, force him into making those quick decisions, maybe try to disguise some coverages. Who knows? But if they can force some turnovers, that could be huge.
Right. And then on the other side, you've got Will Howard, who's more of that, traditional pocket passer. But the article did mention he can have some trouble when things break down around him, when the pocket collapses and things get kind of chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Notre Dame's defensive line, they're no joke. They're going to try and disrupt his rhythm, get him off his spot, and force him into making mistakes. If they can win that battle in the trenches, it could be a very long day for Ohio State.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that both quarterbacks were actually playing for different teams when these schools last met back in 2023. Makes you wonder how things might have been different if they were leading their current teams back then.
Doesn't it? It's like a big what-if scenario playing out on the biggest stage.
Totally. And speaking of second chances, remember how Howard had that rough game against Michigan earlier this season? And this game could be a real chance for redemption for him to prove he can handle the pressure and lead his team to a championship.
Oh, for sure. And, he did have a strong playoff performance, bounced back nicely, so he's definitely got the talent.
He does. And let's not forget about Leonard's performance in the semifinal either. Leading that second half comeback, that definitely showed he has that clutch gene.
Yeah, he can definitely rise to the occasion. But the big question is, can Notre Dame's defense contain Ohio State's explosive offense? Those guys have playmakers everywhere you look.
I mean, they're loaded, so let's break down those weapons a bit. Ohio State's offense, it all starts with those receivers. Emeka Egbuka coming back for another season, and he's been just unstoppable.
Oh, he's been phenomenal. Like, he took every bit of criticism from that, up and down season he had in 2023 personally, and has come back with a vengeance. And then you add in Jeremiah Smith, that freshman phenom. I mean, the guy's electric. Every time he touches the ball, it feels like something big is about to happen.
And we can't forget Carnell Tate either. He really stepped up in that semifinal, leading the team in receiving. I mean, he's not just some role player. He's a legitimate threat out there.
Absolutely. They're going to be a nightmare for Notre Dame's secondary. I mean, even with all their talent and experience back there, keeping up with all those weapons is going to be a huge task.
And then you add in that dynamic running back duo of Quinshon Jenkins and Trevayon Henderson. Remember that 75-yard touchdown catch Henderson had against Texas? That's the kind of big play potential they bring to the table.
It really is. It's like they have a cheat code on offense. Even if you manage to contain one of their weapons, they have two or three others who can hurt you. And the thing is, even with some injury struggles, their offensive line has been incredibly resilient this year.
Yeah, it's impressive that Donovan Jackson has been able to step up and play out of position so effectively. For those who might not follow the details closely, Jackson's usually a guard, but he's been filling in at tackle because of those injuries. And he's holding up against some really tough competition, so that says a lot.
Absolutely. It speaks to their depth and their coaching. They've got guys who are ready to step up and perform when called upon. But even with all that, Notre Dame's defense is nothing to sneeze at either. Those guys are tough, they're a physical unit, and they have some NFL prospects of their own.
They do have that reputation for being tough to crack. So how do they match up against this high-powered Ohio State offense? What are their strengths?
Well, they're built from the inside out. You start with Howard Cross III, the son of the former Giants tight end. He anchors that defensive line. He's a force in the middle.
And then you have Jack Kaiser at linebacker. Senior leader, great instincts. The article mentioned he's got real NFL potential, especially when it comes to stopping the run.
Yeah, he's the heart and soul of that defense for sure. But their secondary is where things get really interesting. They've got Xavier Watts at safety, and he's been a ball hawk all season. 6 interceptions this year.
Just 6 interceptions. That's impressive.
Yeah, he's a game changer. Always around the ball, not afraid to take risks. But, that aggressive style can backfire sometimes, too. Ohio State's receivers are definitely talented enough to make him pay if he gambles and misses.
For sure. And it'll be interesting to see how they try to contain those receivers. And they've also got Jordan Clark, their slot corner, also heading to a postseason All-Star game. So they've definitely got some talent back there.
Oh, yeah, they do. But the key for Notre Dame will be winning that battle in the trenches. If they can disrupt Ohio State's offensive rhythm, get to Howard early and often, they have a real chance to pull off the upset.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Notre Dame's defense, but let's not forget about Ohio State's defense. They might be overshadowed by their own offense, but they're just as formidable, I would say.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? That's what makes this Ohio State team so dangerous. They're not just an offensive juggernaut. They're a complete team. They can beat you in so many ways.
I mean, their secondary is absolutely loaded with talent. Caleb Downs, that sophomore standout, already looks like a star. He had that game-sealing interception against Texas earlier this season.
Ooh, he's got a knack for making big plays. And then you add in that veteran leadership with Lathan Ransom at safety, and then Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun at cornerback. Those guys are good.
And we can't forget about Jordan Hancock at nickelback either. Another key piece to that puzzle.
Absolutely. They have a great blend of youth and experience back there. They're going to be a tough challenge for Riley Leonard and that Notre Dame passing attack, but I think the most intimidating part of their defense is that defensive line.
Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, they're like a force of nature. I mean, Sawyer even had that game-changing fumble return touchdown against Texas.
Yeah, they're relentless pass rushers, but they're also incredibly strong against the run. They're going to be a handful for Notre Dame's offensive line.
And it's not just them. Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton are dominant on the interior of that defensive line as well. They don't always get the headlines, but they're crucial to Ohio State's success.
They really are. They're kind of like the unsung heroes, the guys who clog up the middle and make it really difficult for running backs to find any space. But make no mistake, they're difference makers.
Yeah, so you could see this Ohio State team, they're the real deal. They've got the talent, the depth, and a coaching staff that knows how to put those players in a position to succeed.
They're a complete team, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They can beat you with their offense, with their defense, even their special teams. They're going to be a really tough out for Notre Dame, but, I wouldn't count the Irish out just yet either. They might not have that same, star power as Ohio State, but they're well coached. They're a team with a lot of heart.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because they are known for their toughness and their resilience.
Yeah.
So what else makes them a threat in this game?
Well, they're a team that really relies on fundamentals, execution. They have that never say die attitude, and they've proven time and time again that they can hang with the best teams out there. And, let's not forget, they have Riley Leonard under center, and he can be a real game changer.
That's Riley Leonard, that exciting dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
But we talked about his passing being a little inconsistent, especially under pressure. But, he's also rushed for 16 touchdowns this season. Do you think they might lean into his running ability even more in this game?
I think they might, yeah. And, against a defense like Ohio State's, sometimes the best way to attack is to keep them guessing. Using Leonard's legs, especially in short yardage situations, could keep those Ohio State defenders off balance. And it could also help Notre Dame control the clock a bit more, keep that explosive Ohio State offense off the field.
Right. Makes sense. Try to wear down that Ohio State defense and limit their possessions. But Ohio State's secondary is really opportunistic. They'll be ready for Gable Leonard's running ability. And if he's forced to make those tough throws under pressure, they'll be looking to capitalize on any mistakes.
Oh, for sure. For sure. This game could really come down to whether Leonard can make those big throws when it matters most. Can you make smart decisions under pressure? Can you avoid those costly turnovers? That'll be a key storyline to watch.
It's like a chess match between these two quarterbacks with their contrasting styles and their strengths. It makes me think back to that 2023 matchup when these teams last met. Of course, both quarterbacks were with different programs then, but it makes you wonder what might have happened if they had face-off back then with their current teams.
Yeah, it's a fascinating what if, almost like this championship game is a chance to rewrite history. See how these two quarterbacks would measure up against each other on the biggest stage?
It really does. It's like destiny almost. And speaking of rewriting history, we talked about Will Howard looking for redemption after that tough game against Michigan. But he did bounce back with a solid playoff performance. Do you think that momentum carries over into this game?
I think it has to. He's shown he can learn from his mistakes. And that resilience is going to be crucial against a defense like Notre Dame's. This game is his chance to prove he can handle the pressure, silence the doubters, and lead his team to victory.
And he's got those weapons all around him on offense. So let's shift gears and talk about those offensive fireworks from Ohio State. I mean, Emeka Egbuka came back for another season, and he's been simply phenomenal.
He's been playing like a man possessed. It's like he took all the criticism from that, uneven 2023 season personally and came back with a vengeance. And then you throw in Jeremiah Smith, that freshman sensation. It's just unfair. The guy is pure electricity.
Feels like every time he touches the ball, something spectacular happens. And let's not forget Carnell Tate either. He really stepped up in that semifinal game, led the team in receiving. He's not just a role player, he's a legitimate weapon.
Yeah, he's proving that he can deliver in those big moments. They are going to be an absolute nightmare for Notre Dame's secondary.
Even with all their talent and experience back there, it's going to be tough for that Notre Dame secondary to contain those three.
I can't wait to see that matchup unfold. Notre Dame's secondary, known for their tight coverage and playmaking ability, going head-to-head with these elite receivers, it's going to be a battle for the ages.
And then you add in that dynamic running back duo of Quinshon Judkins and Trevelyan Henderson. I still can't get over that 75-yard touchdown catch Henderson had against Texas. That play showed everything you need to know about their big play potential.
Yeah, they can hurt you in so many ways. Speed, power, elusiveness. It's like they have a cheat code for offensive production. But let's not forget about the guys up front either. Their offensive line has faced some adversity with injuries this year, but they've been able to hold their own.
Yeah, and Donovan Jackson stepping up to play out of position has been huge for them. It's a testament to their coaching and their depth. They've got guys who are ready to step in and contribute when their number is called.
But that offensive line is going to have their hands full against Notre Dame's defensive front. Those guys are tough, they're physical, and they're going to be coming after Will Howard relentlessly. That battle in the trenches is going to be crucial.
Absolutely. If Ohio State's offensive line can give Howard time to operate and open up running lanes for those talented backs, they're going to be extremely tough to stop.
But if Notre Dame can win that battle up front, disrupt Ohio State's offensive flow, they have a real chance to control this game.
It's all about those key matchups, the offensive line versus the defensive line, those elite receivers versus Notre Dame's talented secondary. It's like a chess match within a chess match, each side trying to exploit the other's weaknesses.
And that chess match extends to the coaching battle as well. Ryan Day for Ohio State and Marcus Freeman for Notre Dame, two of the brightest minds in the game.
Speaking of Notre Dame's defense, we talked about those NFL prospects. It seems like they're always built from the inside out. How does that defensive front match up against Ohio State's high-powered attack?
Well, you got to start with Howard Cross III, the anchor of that defensive line. He's such a disruptive force. He's constantly demanding double teams, which frees up his teammates to make plays.
And then you have Jack Kaiser at linebacker, the senior leader, those great instincts. Seems like he's always around the ball.
He is. He's the quarterback of that defense, the heart and soul, always in the right place at the right time. And let's not forget about their secondary either. Xavier Watts has been a revelation at safety this year. With those 6 interceptions, he's got a knack for making big plays.
6 interceptions, it's a huge number. He's clearly a ball hawk.
Yeah.
But the article mentioned that he can be prone to gambling. Do you think that aggressive style could backfire against a team like Ohio State with those talented receivers?
That's a great question. It's a high-risk, high-reward style of play. He's going to make some big plays, but he's also going to give up some plays. So it'll be interesting to see how Notre Dame balances that risk. Do they try to rein him in a bit? Or do they let him loose and hope he makes enough game-changing plays to swing the momentum their way?
And they've also got Jordan Clark, their slot corner, also heading to a postseason All-Star game. They're going to need him to step up against those Ohio State receivers.
It's going to be a battle of wills out there. Can Notre Dame's secondary, despite their talent, hold up against that onslaught of offensive weapons? Or will Ohio State's firepower be too much for them to handle?
So we've talked a lot about Notre Dame's defense, but let's give their offense a little love here too. They might not have the same level of star power as Ohio State, but they do have some playmakers.
They do, and they've got a system that works for them. They're not going to try to outscore Ohio State. They're going to try to control the clock, limit possessions. and just play mistake-free football.
So it sounds like they're going to try to grind it out, keep the game close, hope for a few breaks to go their way.
Exactly. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to make Ohio State earn every inch.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about both teams, their strengths, their weaknesses, the key matchups. But let's bring it back to you for a moment. As you've been listening to us break down this game, what stood out to you the most? What are you most excited to see play out on the field?
Well, for me, it's that clash of styles. You know, you've got Ohio State that wants to score early and often, put up a ton of points, just overwhelm you with their talent. And then you have Notre Dame who wants to slow the game down, play tough defense, and win a real battle of attrition. It's like two completely different philosophies going head to head.
Yeah, it really is, and I think that's what makes this matchup so fascinating. It's not just about who has the better players, it's about which style of play prevails. You know, can Notre Dame's defense, even with all its talent, withstand that constant barrage from Ohio State's offense?
Right, or will Ohio State, even with their explosive offense, get frustrated by Notre Dame's resilience and that disciplined defense? It's a classic battle of strength versus strength.
It is. It really is. And it's going to come down to those key matchups that we talked about, like how does Notre Dame's defensive line, led by Howard Cross III, contain that dynamic Ohio State running game? Can their linebackers, especially Jack Kaiser, keep Riley Leonard from making those big plays with his legs?
And on the other side, can Ohio State's receivers create enough separation against Notre Dame's talented secondary? Can they make those tough catches in traffic? Can Will Howard find them consistently, even when Notre Dame's pass rush is bearing down on him?
Those are the questions that are going to be answered on the field. But what about you? What will you be looking for?
You know, for me, I'll be watching for those subtle adjustments, those in-game decisions that can really turn the tide. Maybe Notre Dame throws in a few wrinkles on defense, some disguised coverages to try and confuse Will Howard.
Oh, I like that. Or maybe Ohio State comes out with a more balanced attack.
Yeah.
You know, leaning on their running game early to try and set up those big plays in the passing game later. It's going to be fascinating to see how that chess match unfolds.
It really is. And let's not forget about the coaching battle either. Ryan Day for Ohio State and Marcus Freeman for Notre Dame. I mean, these are two of the brightest offensive minds in college football. They're going to have their teams prepared, and they'll have some tricks up their sleeves for sure.
It's not just about X's and O's, though, is it?
Yeah.
There's also that intangible factor, the emotion, the intensity of a championship game. These players are playing for a national title, for their teammates, for their schools. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than this.
No, it doesn't. And sometimes those emotions can really swing the momentum of a game. A big play, a turnover, a crucial penalty. You know, those are the moments that can define a championship game. It's about who can stay composed, who can execute under pressure, who wants it more.
And sometimes it's those unsung heroes, too, the guys who haven't gotten a lot of attention during the season. But they step up and make a difference in a big game like this. Maybe it's a backup offensive lineman who comes in and makes a key block.
Or maybe a special teams player comes up with a big return. You never know who is going to emerge as that unlikely hero in a game like this. That's part of the beauty of college football.
I agree. Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and you've definitely given us a lot to think about as we get ready for this championship game.
My pleasure. It's always fun to dive into these matchups and try to break down what makes them so special.
So for you listening out there, as you get ready for this big game, remember what we talked about today. Look beyond the obvious. Pay attention to those key matchups, those subtle adjustments, those moments of brilliance, and those moments of adversity that, will inevitably occur.
And most importantly, enjoy the spectacle. This is a matchup between two incredibly talented teams, two proud programs with a lot of history. It's going to be a game that's talked about for years to come.
Absolutely. We hope this deep dive has given you a deeper appreciation for the nuances of this matchup and has enhanced your viewing experience. Thanks for joining us.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have the ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a puppy dog. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.